Up in Farmington. I have to do a drive this weekend.
Oh, that's doing form-based code? Oh, that'd be cool. Because, yeah, it's kind of like Daybreak, but how do we... Stuff that's not a massive development, you know? Because there's that whole new development that was behind Dennis' office.
Yeah.
By the junior high.
Very good. Might need it tonight.
Had like
All right, we'd like to go ahead and welcome everybody out to the Planning Commission for today, Thursday, November 17th. Appreciate everybody being in attendance at this time. To begin, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance given to us, led to us by Teddy Hodges.
All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Appreciate that. We do have a full quorum tonight. Appreciate all the commissioners being here tonight as well. Just want to ask if there's any conflicts of interest before we get into the agenda on any of the items tonight. Okay, before we do get into the agenda, I do want to make one note of one of the agenda items that will not be held tonight. Item 4.5, which is a consideration of a conditional use amendment for the design of an illuminated sign next to the Lone Peak, for the Lone Peak Hospital Emergency Center, will be on hold and will be brought to us at a later date. There's been some recent developments, and they're going to be making some updates to that and coming back to the commission. So we appreciate their time, but that will not be on the agenda for tonight. With that, we will move on to item 4.1, which is a consideration of a conditional use to construct a monument sign for a medical service. And I think we're going to see a lot of Clint tonight. So, all right, very good.
Okay, so this first request is fairly simple. As part of a policy adopted by the Planning Commission, typically, or a lot of our monument signs don't come to the commission for review. However, that's when there's a masonry base and then a masonry element up the side of a monument sign, that those are, by policy, those can be adopted and approved by planning staff. This doesn't have the masonry side up, or masonry featured up the side, so it does come before the Planning Commission for approval. This is for the new dental office being constructed currently on Anthem Park Boulevard. It's a medical service. The monument sign is about 47 square feet, and then there's an electronic display component of that as well. So this is the site plan and the proposed location for that sign. You can see that it's just outside of the Clearview triangle on the corner. And then to the left is the appearance. It does have a masonry base, it just doesn't have that same masonry appearance up the side, which is why it comes before the commission for approval. From a planning perspective, we see no issues with the sign. It meets the other criteria in terms of size and height. As engineering looked at it, they did want to recommend an alternative placement that they felt would be more suitable for the sign, better visibility along Anthem Park Boulevard, and maybe we'd have the applicant address this alternative placement. They're free to go in either direction that they choose. We just wanted to have that before the commission and the applicant today. In terms of distance from residential, it's about 167 feet from a residential property, probably more in terms of 190 feet away from an actual home. This shows how the sign complements and is similar to the architecture of the buildings that are the building that's being constructed on site. And then again, these are the conditions or considerations of approval. That being said, we do recommend approval with these, with the conditions here shown. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, I believe the applicant is here.
Okay. Is there any questions for Clint? Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and invite the applicant to come forward and provide any additional information that might be noteworthy for us. And please state your name as you come up.
Hello, I'm Karsten McCullough with Freedom LED, and we definitely want it to flow with the looks of the building. The reason why we want to have that side part not be masonry is because there's lettering going up that, and we want that lettering to be illuminated. And the black paneling is aluminum, where it also is routed out with 3/4 inch thick Plex that is pushed through, so it has this kind of a luxury look illumination for it, so it'll make it look really nice.
What's your thoughts on the recommendation that engineering had to maybe rotate that sign? Any input on that?
I think it's a
or-
great idea. I definitely will need to
Okay,
put it in the customer's hands,
okay,
because I'm definitely an advocate for it to be perpendicular, not 45. So, but I will
Okay.
definitely bring it up to them.
yeah, I kind of like the idea too, to kind of shields it a little more from the residents, even though it's
Yep.
far enough away anyway.
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts for the applicant? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, yeah, this is not open for public hearing, so this is, any discussion from Planning Commission on this? Or I'll entertain a motion.
I understand the need to come before us, but I think it has a nice look to it as well. So
Looks great.
I'll go ahead and have a motion that we recommend approval with the 4 items noted by staff.
Great, we have a motion by Jackson,
Second?
and second by Forrest. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. We'll start with Brody.
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Adam?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you for your time. We'll move on to item 4.2, which is consideration for a conditional use for Lifestone Church. Clint, come on up.
So this has been in the process for quite some time. We have gone through a rezone process, I believe early this year, to rezone it to the C1 zone to kind of make way for this, this development. We've been working with the applicant on the site plan for a little while now, so we're glad to see it become before the commission tonight. So the location of this is up on, I believe it's, I think it's Herriman no, not Main Street, Herriman Boulevard, or 126. Yeah, Herriman Boulevard, got it right. So right now, this is currently just a vacant weed patch, very unattractive. You can see that I just inset the site plan here. There are homes adjacent on each side of the proposed site plan. You can see the building location, the parking circulation, how that will work. There is, the dumpster is located on the south of the site, and then on the north side of the building, you can see a large landscaped area. And so that is a portion of the property that they're reserving for a future addition for a church. The building that's being constructed now will double as a church, but it will also be used throughout the week as a daycare. So in terms of their proposal, again, the church is about, or the daycare is about 14,500 square feet, 23 feet tall. It's set back from the property, from that south property line, about 20 feet. Finished materials is largely brick and masonry. It does meet our commercial standards in terms of 60% brick or stone on all 4 sides of the building. They have provided 124 parking stalls, which is extra than they need. For the existing building, I believe the parking requirement was about 38, 39 stalls. And then they're anticipating, with the parking, they're anticipating the construction of the church in the future with, I think it'll accommodate a 250-seat auditorium. So with the 250-seat auditorium and the existing building, there'll still be about 7 or 8 parking stalls over what the requirement is with 124 parking stalls. There is 40% live growth and landscaping on the site. Again, that will obviously change as the new church comes in the future. And they are making a request for a waiver of strict compliance for landscaping along the south side of the site, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. So in terms of conditional use considerations, the things that we're looking at that are most impactful are looking at traffic, connectivity, noise, and the signs and the lighting from those signs. So again, this is just to kind of give you a good idea of what the site looks like. Again, it's, you know, on the west side, it is adjacent to an existing walking trail, paved trail. And then to the south, there are single-family homes there. You can see the location of the building, where the future building is going to go, the parking circulation. Again, the dumpster is on the south side as well. There's an enclosed playground on the just to the east of the proposed building, and then detention on the east of the site. This is the building elevations on all 4 sides. Again, it meets that brick and stone requirement on all 4 sides. The maximum height is 23 feet tall. So not very impactful in terms of what it could be. So in terms of impacts, in place right now, they have a 4-foot rail fence on the west side of the development, and then there's an 8-foot tall masonry wall. So it's not a 6-foot or a 10-foot. I think in the application, it might have stated that there was a 10-foot masonry wall, but going out and looking at the wall, it's only it's an 8-foot masonry wall. So things that it could be impactful, there's the playground, placement of the building, the queuing, and then that orange area is where they're requesting a waiver for the reduced setback, and then the location of the dumpster. And so these are all impacts that we thought, you know, could be and should be mitigated, and some of them, or most of them, have been. So with the playground, they do have an 8-foot masonry fence. It's set back 15 feet from the property line. In terms of the building, there's no lit signage on the east side, or that's what we would recommend. It's set back 20 feet from the property line. If this was a single-family neighborhood, that's fairly typical from what you'd see on a setback as well. It's only 23 feet tall, so very much less than what it could be if it was a single-family home up to 35 feet tall. The queuing pattern, as proposed by the applicant, runs east to west through the site, provides stacking for 22 cars, and there may be additional off-site stacking available on the shoulder, but that probably will not be utilized. The dumpster location was something that we wanted to bring out as staff. It is located closer to a residential home. And looking at alternative sites, it could be moved to this parking island here. That would help the applicant pick up a couple of parking stalls. In an email to them and a response back, I know that they do have some concerns about that, that they would probably like to address, but our recommendation from a staff perspective is to move that dumpster further away from the residential homes to reduce that impact to them. In terms of the reduced setback waiver, we do recommend approval of that. So they're going from a 15-foot requirement to a 12.5-foot. So it's only about a 2.5-foot reduction. With the 8-foot tall masonry wall, we felt like it would be appropriate to allow that waiver to occur. They still do have a lot of landscaping. The tree requirement is there. So, you know, the sounds and noises will be mitigated with the additional 2 feet on the fence as well. So that being said, I think I've stated our recommendations. If there's any questions that I could address, I'd be glad to answer what I can.
Hey, Clint, you pointed out the trail fence. Mm-hmm. Does the staff recommend, it just says repair it, not change the fence out to a different type or anything like that?
No, the fence is, I think the fence in place is suitable. So we're just recommending that they replace and repair the different types. We did look at, so in the ordinance, it requires a masonry fence when it's adjacent to a residential use. And so where that trail is not technically a residential use, they wouldn't technically be required to have the 6-foot masonry wall.
Okay. Thank you.
Does the existing dumpster location have an enclosure? A
It
planned
does,
enclosure?
yeah. Yeah, and the enclosure matches the architecture of the building. They did a good job with that as well. So we're just recommending a shift in a shift in location.
So a quick clarification, also on the, from the trail, the fence that's next to the residential is the 6-foot vinyl then on the other side of the trail, opposite of the rail fence? You know, because,
I believe so.
yeah, the single-family homes, they're on the other side of the trail.
Yeah,
6
I think it's
vinyl.
6-foot vinyl, right?
Yeah, 6-foot
Okay,
vinyl on
I just
the
wanted
other
to verify
side.
that. Yeah. Okay.
In the work session, we talked about the far east side of the parking lot where there were some conflicting, or appears to be conflicting parking stalls. I wonder if another option for the dumpster enclosure would be to move it all the way to the east. It does create a longer path to walk, but they could gain a stall there and lose one that's really ineffective where it's at right now, put the dumpster.
right. So if they put it out closer to the street, they'd have to comply with that 15-foot setback requirement, which, I mean, that's where their parking is at now. So that's a possibility, if you'd like to recommend that.
Like that.
I'm concerned with the current proposed location, in that the
close to the
queuing goes
building
along
right
there, and you could have a safety concern with kids running out to cars at the queuing and not being able to see with the dumpster and the dumpster enclosure there, so I'm somewhat concerned with the
The
proposed location.
proposed location,
proposed
not,
not
the
the current
new
location.
proposed, not
The
the
new
current.
proposed.
Yeah,
The city proposed.
The city proposed, there you go.
City proposed location, I'm concerned with that one.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, too.
So the applicant
by
is
the
here
front
if you'd like to ask them any additional questions, or if you have anything else for me.
Yeah, we can have some of these discussions with the applicant. Anything else for city staff? Great. All right. Would you please state your name and go ahead and provide any additional information?
Yeah, my name's Cody Williams. I'm the applicant and the design engineer as well for the property. And I think the dumpster enclosure is kind of, our biggest issue that we want to bring up, at least the proposed location, like one of the council members mentioned about the safety of visibility there. It also places the dumpster enclosure pretty much 20 feet from our front door. I can't think of any building in Herriman that has a dumpster enclosure right at the front door of the building. So we have given it some thought to where it currently is. We realize, and we thank Clint for the recommendation of moving it, but where it is right now, it makes it easy for teachers that are going to be rolling trash out to this location. There's a sidewalk that's provided, and you can notice as well where the property kind of tapers down, and that sidewalk right now, it provides the 15-foot setback to the dumpster enclosure. If we move it anywhere else on site, we're going to end up having to have somebody go out into the parking area to take the trash out. And it is roughly, it would be over 300 feet from the front door out to where the detention basin is. So that would be a pretty long walk as well. So it would be, we'd be grateful if you'd allow us to keep the dumpster enclosure where it currently is located. We realize too as well that, you're trying to mitigate any impacts to the residential area to the south. But with that in mind, there is an 8-foot wall that is separating the dumpster enclosure from the residential area. And we'd just like you to take that into account where it is and just kind of the unique shape of the property.
Any other thoughts or questions? I know there were some other comments.
So I have a question for you. So Daryl had talked earlier about some conflicting parking spots. The benefits of having the diagonal parking is that you obviously are able to get a little bit more parking in. It's a little bit easier to pull in and then pull back out. And so, but what that does do is where you have, like in the top right corner, of this, and I appreciate that you have the trucks and the cars shown on this as well, because that gives you some scale. You know, those two corner lots overlap, and so if you've got a truck in any of those two parking spots, you have to pull back out, and you'd be pulling back into another parking spot's location. That's just an accident waiting to happen, and since you have so many additional spots than you need, I think they said 8 more, even with the church, future church building, you know, I think that it would be a lot more easier to kind of eliminate those two parking spots and give yourself a little bit of a breathing room, you know, for pulling in and pulling out, because, you know, diagonal parking is great, but you also have to be able to park backwards, and because of your one-way traffic, you know, it does make it a little more difficult when you got those conflicting parking spaces.
Yes.
Are you seeing the two that
See
he's
where
talking
you-
about?
Yep.
Right next
Yeah,
to
and I'm assuming you've probably done some templates or something in there just to see how those would
I think you
would
can
come
come
in
on
and
the
out.
screen.
Yeah, I think he's
Forest
picturing it.
has
It's
it.
right there it's essentially the northeast corner, and you got the one that's kind of on the east side and one that's on the north side, so, that are right next to each other.
Yeah, right next to the retention
They're 90
pond
degrees
and
of
the
each
top-
other,
They are, and the one to the left,
and the one to the left of that,
you
yeah.
know, that, and the one to the, the one on the left, it has to pull into the one on the right's actual parking space to exit, and so it's a difficult angle.
Yeah, maybe just, again, take a look at the templates there, the turning templates for those parking vehicles, and see
Yeah.
how they're gonna have to work with each other. Where you have extra stalls, maybe you can get rid of a stall or two if need be.
Yep.
Provide a little more landscaped area or whatever right there too. Or a spot for a dumpster, but yeah,
Well, yeah, so,
we recognize
Get where the
that.
dumpster is.
right.
That-
Ideally, you could go all the way over there and next to your retention area and have your dumpster over there, but it is a long
That is a
hike.
long haul.
You know, that's almost a block.
Exactly.
Get their steps in. That's
It would get their steps in.
Any other questions for the applicant? Or any other thoughts there?
Oh, we want to talk about queuing. Just making sure
Thank
that
you.
we're not queuing on Herriman Boulevard.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this in our work session, and the queuing, there was even the slide earlier said, you know, you've got enough queuing for 22 stalls, but or 22 vehicles, we really do not recommend any
I don't
queuing
know.
onto Herriman Boulevard
I know
whatsoever.
some schools will close off one
Yeah.
one part of it, so they have to be
And
pushed
force
through
them
one
to
way.
go to the,
Yep.
how's that gonna work, to make them go to the east entrance, and then also keep it from queuing onto Herriman Boulevard, or a couple of the,
Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely the intent would be to cone off the west approach during the morning hours. And with this being a preschool, it's not going to be like a typical school that you're going to have a mass start at a certain time. You're going to have delayed drop-off and pickup from, you know, different families dropping off children at different times, varying times. There will be a peak hour, and we did address a calculation and sent that in, and I believe the maximum amount of queuing was, I think, I want to say 20 cars. I'm just going off memory right now, but the 22 cars during the peak hour was sufficient, assuming, I think, an average drop-off time of, I'm not going to say it right, so it was something like a minute or 45 seconds or something like that.
and that's with the full build-out of the entire site as well, right?
That's, well.
I guess the other side.
The other side wouldn't be used for the preschool, so,
True,
yep,
okay,
wouldn't be affected. It wouldn't change at that time.
right.
So I just have one simple question. I'm sure everyone's already looked at it, but the contamination area, the repository, that can be underneath the playground for kids, right?
Correct, yeah.
We've
it-
concentrated a lot more. I just wanted to make sure. we
Yeah,
looked at
and
that.
we've worked with Wasatch Environmental to create a recommendation and report for dealing with the existing repository that's on site, and to also work with the additional contaminated soils that are on site. So those would be remediated prior to building permit being issued. So I believe the conditions for that.
Yeah, I just meant the fact that we're gonna put a playground over the top of it is all I meant.
Yeah. Yeah. One quick question, going back to the dumpster, the main concern I think we have, where it's proposed right now, is an early morning, obviously, emptying of that dumpster and the residents right there next to it. I don't know if there's any way to work with, trash pickup to have that done at a more later on in the morning or whatever, just so that it does not interfere. I don't know if that would be an acceptable mitigation for that location as well. I think that's probably the main concern is, 6 a.m., emptying of that dumpster, and it does get loud, and all those homes, it's not just the one right behind it, would be affected by something like that. And I don't know if that's even feasible or reasonable, but I think that's probably the main concern that we have with that location there. I don't know if there's any thoughts or any discussions that may have happened with trash pickup or not with that.
We haven't engaged with any of the trash services, but I think we like that recommendation, and if that could be coordinated, obviously, we would push for that.
Yeah. And I don't know if that might be an option for the staff's recommendation to have
That
it
could just be a
moved.
requirement, right?
Or a requirement, if you're not going to move it. Right now, there's a requirement in the staff's recommendation to have it adjusted for one of the, so we could go to that. Okay, any other thoughts for the applicant before we go into more discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and let you have a seat. Thank you for your time,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts? Should we go to the slide that has the 6 recommendations from the staff? And maybe Clint can answer my question too about, instead of, let's see, which one was it? Oh, number 4. Is that the main concern then that city staff has, is the timing of the emptying, or is it just proximity, or
distance.
what?
It could be
Is it just
both.
distance from residents?
Stench, the smell that maybe
Could be the
happening?
smell as well. In a similar project in a different city, where they couldn't find a better spot for the dumpster, so we required them, or the city required them to put a top on it
Oh.
to kind of help enclose the smell. So, I mean, so it's 15 feet from the property line, from the backyard of these folks, even though there's an 8-foot masonry wall. I don't know, I can just picture a hot summer afternoon that you're still going to get some smells if there's something in there. And the noise was also another thing. I think it was a good suggestion to maybe change the time of emptying to later in the day.
Yeah, I know there's other church facilities that do have their dumpsters right behind residents, right next to the backyards of residents as well. It happens quite frequently.
But it's not but those are, so remember, we're not looking at it as a church, we're looking at this as a daycare.
True.
So it's just a little bit different, right?
All the old milk cartons.
That's what I'm trying to say. is
dirty
there's-
diapers.
There may be a little bit different uses. I agree, if we were talking about it as a church, I wouldn't have as much of a concern as well.
Yeah.
I mean, where they have it right now, functionally, is the safest with that walkway to it.
What if we kept it there and, like Clint's saying, propose putting a
Put a
cover on
cap.
top of it and
I think that makes sense.
the time it's dumped? To me,
Yeah.
to me, moving it, it's gonna just make a problem no matter where you put it, because the site's so skinny, right?
Yeah.
But to me, those two mitigate both of those concerns, and you could defend both of them, since this is more of a daycare, a preschool daycare kind of discussion.
I think that sounds good.
Am I hearing a motion with that?
I'll
Any
go
other
ahead and make a
discussion?
motion,
Go ahead,
unless anybody
Adam.
wants to talk.
Any other discussion for Adam? No.
Can we do anything, well, just like, I don't know, if there's something we can do about at the peak, that they would cone off that one entrance?
I don't have a problem
The
with that.
west entrance.
If it's coned and stuff, there's emergency, they can plow through the
Yeah.
cones if they needed to, but, yeah,
I guess that was just
long
my
as-
suggestion.
yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I move to approve item 4.2 with staff's recommendation with an adjustment to number 4, that we keep the dumpster where it's, the applicant has proposed it. However, we limit the hours of dumping to after 7 o'clock in the morning, during our normal hours times, I guess is what we could reference. And then also that the dumpster is covered, as well as the 7th, that requires that they do not use the west entrance for drop-off.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Adam and a second by Brody. We'll go ahead and call for a vote at this time. Adam?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That one passes. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to item 4.3. But before doing so, item 4.3 is up for a public hearing. So I just want to quickly read the public comment policy and procedure for public hearings. The purpose of public comment is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to the city recorder tonight. In general, the chair, I will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. Excuse me. This policy also applies to all public hearings. So with that, go ahead, item 4.3.
All right, so this is the first of 2 requests from the Axia Business Park group that are here tonight. Again, another process, we've been working with this group for quite some time, going through a general plan amendment, rezone. They've been very good to work with, and they've addressed a lot of the issues and most of the issues that we've brought up with them, which we certainly appreciate from a city staff. So this is taking place down in the Rockwell Landing area, just off of Redwood Road and Porter Rockwell Boulevard, kind of the south side of the city. So this is the proposed 2-lot subdivision. Currently, obviously, this property is vacant, nothing there now. It did go through a rezone to rezone the property to M1 just this year, and the general plan was changed to accommodate that as well. There's there's actually it's a 4-lot subdivision. The 2 lots on the kind of the northeast side of the road, and then there's 2 skinnier lots on the southwest side of the road. So in terms of approval, we're looking at engineering standards and the zoning ordinance here. So they're creating 4 manufacturing lots. Again, lot 1 will be utilized for the next application, which is a site plan for a large warehouse building that will be going there. So this is the proposed plat. Kind of hard to see all four lots in this one. So here's a little bit better visual of the lot locations. So lots 3 and 4, these are the 2 lots in blue and red. As you can see, they're fairly narrow, kind of odd-shaped lots. In terms of compliance with the ordinance, the M1 zone doesn't have any minimums in terms of lot width or lot size. So these technically do comply with the zoning ordinance in the M1 zone. They're obviously going to be more difficult to develop, if ever. And as a recommendation, and an email that we received back from the applicant as well is just an agreement that whoever owns the property will maintain them. Once they become a developed lot, weed maintenance is something that comes into more play, to prevent fire hazards or, trash kinds of things as well. Those things will be more, will be able to to better address those issues once they become developed lots as opposed to just vacant. And then in the next proposal as well, we'll kind of go through what's going to take place on those 2 lots. There's some landscaping elements that will be proposed there. So with that being said, we do recommend approval of the subdivision, and glad to hear any questions if you've got anything.
Any questions for Clint? Okay, thank you. The applicant's here. I'd like to come forward, provide your name and any other additional information you'd like for us to hear.
Good evening. Chase Hudson with Park West Real Estate, part of the joint venture between Park West and Axia, who will be developing the site. First off, I just want to say thank you to the planning staff, engineering team, and everyone involved so far. It's been a very smooth process, and we've appreciated the support from the city of Herriman. Yeah, happy to answer any questions on this piece or on the following piece that we'll be presenting.
Great. Any questions for the applicant?
Have you considered joining those two skinny parcels with the other two bigger ones?
Yeah, when we were looking at the skinnier parcels, they do sit west of the right-of-way that we'll be putting in as part of the city transportation master plan. The reason that they're separate is just in case we can develop anything on the north or south side in those triangle-shaped pieces. We haven't really contemplated anything to date. We are going to be agreeing with the city to maintain, trash or landscaping that will be going in place there at this time. But given they're on the west side of that right-of-way, it made sense to have them be separate from the larger eastern piece.
All right, thank you.
Right between the canal and the road right away. Yeah, not much to do there. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. This is up for public hearing. We'll let you have a seat. If there's any comments, we'll allow you to come back and address those at that time. So as mentioned, this is up for a public hearing. So at this time, if there's anybody here that would like to make a comment, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. All right. We did not receive any, excuse me, any online comments, or Jackie, nothing like that came on online either? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then at this time. Seeing there, don't need to have the applicant come back up, nothing to comment on. Any discussion from Planning Commission or thoughts?
My initial thought is, boy, that's a steep site. So question is, I can see the grading plan and see how they're recontouring the site. But for the areas that are extremely steep, is there some sort of erosion protection in place here that'll keep the downhill neighbors safe, that will protect our roadways, things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been working very closely with GSH, the geotechnical engineer, as well as our landscape architect and the city, to ensure that landscaping is appropriate to mitigate any runoff of water, soils across the site. And so that's been contemplated. We're including appropriate, rock or mulch or natural vegetation, replacement of natural vegetation, to ensure that where there are more slopes and grade, that we're accommodating that in our plan.
I'm assuming you're working with city engineering as well on those items as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's standards, I'm assuming, for meeting those requirements also.
Something also we could look at in the conditional use, putting a requirement to say that, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, but
Yeah,
on the conditional use side.
And that may be the more appropriate
Yeah.
place to have those
Place to
discussions,
do it.
because
I agree with you,
they're not
Daryl,
talking about the
it's
site
just-
plans here.
that's
it's
true.
just
This is
subdividing.
the plat
Just the
discussion.
subdivision.
That's a very
all
good
I-
point. Yeah, this is
I agree
subdivision.
with the topic, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree too.
Next item. That's a very good point. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we can bring that up on item 4.4, some of those discussions. Very good point. We're right now just considering the plat for this site.
With that, I see no reason not to approve item 4.3 with staff's recommendations.
Okay, we have a motion by Adam
second that.
and a second by Jackson. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. Jackson,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
and Brody.
Yes to that item.
All right, that motion passes. We'll go ahead and move on to item 4.4. Anything more? There's a whole nother presentation, I'm assuming, right?
Okay. All right, with the subdivision now approved, we'll get on to the meat of the development here, I guess you could say. We're all familiar with where this is taking place. So this is just overlaying the site plan onto the proposed site. You can see kind of the location of the building, landscaping areas, the detention area kind of to the northeast corner, and the roadway to the southwest of the site here. and we'll talk about the site a little bit more. So the proposal is a new building, 232,000 square feet plus. It's about 960 feet long. I looked at other buildings in the city that this would be comparable, and maybe a high school is about as long as this. Even, I think when I looked at the Red Real building, it was 650 feet long. So this is considerably longer, 44 feet tall. It's in a very, obviously a very prominent location as you enter into the city, very visible from both Redwood Road, Porter Rockwell Boulevard as well. So that being said, they've gone a long way to address some of our concerns in terms of architectural interest. They've provided obviously the renderings you can see here. The finishing materials will be painted concrete with metal accents. They do have several window and door openings. There's 244 parking stalls and then 37% landscaping, which is obviously more than is required there. So again, the main things we're looking at here is traffic, connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, and then other noise and environmental impacts. So just to get oriented with the site, the road on the south, well, on the bottom part of this picture here, this will be the new road as part of the subdivision that gets installed. There is a part where I believe the road or the site overall encroaches a little bit into the Welby Canal portion of the property. They do have a signed agreement between the Welby Canal Company and them stating that that encroachment is acceptable. It doesn't encroach into the actual canal itself, just onto the property adjacent to the canal. So obviously the location of the building, you can see the landscaping surrounding the property. The parking locations are to the north and to the west of the building. And then one of the features that they've included on the southwest side of the road, they are installing a 12-foot wide asphalt paved trail, which is part of the master transportation plan. And then they've agreed to install where you typically have a 5-foot park strip with trees and with street trees. They're going to move that park strip from the roadway, obviously, over to the kind of the southwest side of the park strip, or the trail anyways. So you'll have the 12-foot wide trail, and then you'll have an additional 5 foot of landscaping that's more than just your native seed. It'll be attractive. They have street trees and shrubs and rock mulch proposed there that will meet our water efficiency design standards as well. So that's one of the nice features we're getting here, and we might talk about that a little bit later. So just in terms of visibility, these are some renderings that they provided, and we appreciate when they go to this extent. We don't get this always from our development partners, but we appreciate these renderings and gives us a better idea of how it will look and feel as it's developed on site. I'm just going to kind of move through these, just different perspectives and views from different locations. Again, they've addressed a lot of our issues in terms of making the building a little more palatable, breaking things up a little bit more to make it not look such a giant, stark building on the hillside there. So in terms of mitigation, I obviously addressed their architectural approaches to kind of help soften that building. They've also provided fencing to screen the loading docks on the rear side of the building that will face to the northeast. That would be a 6-foot tall masonry wall, I believe. Is it masonry or is it? Okay, masonry. I wasn't sure if it was masonry or if it was another substitute. Other things that they've provided in terms of conditional use impacts is they have provided a pedestrian connection from the main doorway. This is not a requirement from the ADA standards, but it is a requirement in terms of conditional use and how not providing a pedestrian connection does affect the overall pedestrian and bicycle circulation. So this connection will go from their front door through the parking lot, and then they'll be installing or be painting a crosswalk over to the 12-foot wide paved trail. And then they have proposed several perimeter trees, and this will help soften the building as well from views from adjacent streets. So, they did do quite a bit in terms of mitigating the site as we brought all these issues up to them, and they've been really great to work with that way, so we appreciate that. There is on-site a FEMA floodplain that goes through the property that could be will be quite impactful to their development. As part of the packet, we included, so the applicant and our engineering team have worked together in a meeting with FEMA to discuss how to resolve the FEMA floodplain. This would go right through the middle of their building. And so between FEMA, the development team, and our city engineering department, they've come up with a proposed process, and that was included in the packet to the Planning Commission on how that will proceed. But there is an outline of how they can make this development work, working through the FEMA process and getting that resolved.
Is that what that drainage easement around becomes?
I'm sorry?
There's a drainage easement around that. Is that what that purpose is for that?
So the drainage easement on screen here?
Yeah.
So this is what exists right now.
Oh, okay.
So this is the one that runs right through their property. So
Gotcha.
they'll work with FEMA to mitigate the drainage and the runoff. They can probably
I'm
address
talking
that.
about the Wood Hollow South Drainage Channel. See detail A.
Yeah,
So
center of the screen, right? Yeah, the note of it is there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one that they're mitigating.
okay, thank you.
So yeah. It was kind of hard to see in the red. Sorry.
Yeah.
No worries.
And my eyes are terrible. That being said, when you hit 40, it doesn't get any better. But that being said, we are recommending approval of the site plan with the following recommendations of approval. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer what I can again.
I have one for you, or maybe engineering, is a lot of the construction shows, and this goes to Daryl's point, I think, it shows that we're basically filling in the Wood Hollow South Drainage Channel for it to be piped, right? I get that, but all the work is done off property? Do we have rights does the developer, do we need to put something as a condition? Since they basically are filling the channel on the commercial property downstream.
So that would be a question that the applicant could probably, and our engineering folks could probably
There's just
better
something,
answer.
no matter how we put that may be a condition we need to at least address is, since we're doing, if you don't do that, there's no way to construct this pad like this.
Right. So it's my understanding that they talked about, and initially they talked about affecting the adjacent neighbor's property. And like I said, the applicant could probably better speak to this, but it's my understanding that as they got going through the process, that wasn't the direction that they ended up going. So I'll let them answer that. better
Yeah,
than I
and I'm just, maybe we can, when we get there, just if somebody can pull up the drawing in the packet on page 117, it shows fill on the adjoining property, so
Okay.
that's, Daryl pointed it out, it made me think about it more earlier.
Okay, any
Other
other?
planning-related questions that I can answer?
On the,
Sorry.
I'll jump to the landscape architecture side, if you can go back to the overall site plan with landscape. Actually, this one's a good one, let's stay right here. So you can see there's been a lot of attention paid to what I understand would be the front of their building. And then the back, we've got a fence, but that fence is right where, we have a major, welcome to our city. And then we've got this big hill that goes all the way down. So we've got a large hill that's going down into the detention down at the bottom. But they're just putting grass all over it. And so I'm wondering is there something we could do better than grass, or has that been discussed at all on this? Welcome to our town, here's a bunch of grass.
So we have discussed that at length with our landscape architect. In the beginning, I think this was proposed as just cobble. The requirement is for 50% growth, or for 50% live growth. So the landscaping that's proposed here with the prairie grass, I think it's just an alternative to reduce reduce maintenance. I think it helps stabilize the slopes there as well, better than the rock mulch would. I agree that it's maybe not going to be super pretty. I think that the trees, though, they have several trees, and maybe my purple lines kind of hide that a little bit, but they do have several trees that will kind of help screen that site.
Yeah, I think they've got a tree every 50 feet kind of thing, but
Are the trees in front or behind the fence? Because I think,
They'll be behind the fence.
so they'll be making the welcome to the city with buffalo grass and cobble a little bit different with trees.
Well, at the moment, it's all grass and there's no cobble.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering if we could do some patterns with some cobble and grass, if there's some ways to maybe enhance that beyond.
But you would
just-
like the trees to be
Behind, right?
behind,
Yeah.
meaning north of the fence.
Correct.
North of the fence, right?
Yeah.
All the way around and not.
And maybe there's a
Don't
couple
worry
trees
about
on the
making
hill.
it pretty behind the fence, on the building side. We want the trees
Yeah,
on
because
the
on the
opposite
building
of the
side, there'd
building
be
side, right?
semis and stuff.
I think,
coming
yeah,
in.
I think they're placed on the building side of the fence. So if you want them on the other side, I think they could probably accommodate that.
I would say on the other
I think to
side.
me, that's the intent.
Yeah.
I mean, this fence really is just to screen
Right.
Semi-trailers.
semi-trailers.
Right.
Yeah, I'd put the, yeah.
That's
I'm sure
why
the
on the other
semi-trailer
side.
drivers would love to see that, the trees.
I think
but-
the trees would be nice.
But
on
I
the other
think
side.
the thousands upon thousands of people driving into our town might,
Rather see the
Better
trees
impression.
in the wall. Yeah.
So I think the only challenge, like I said, with doing a lot of, I mean, if you want to do a lot of rock mulch design kind of stuff to give it some interest and not require more planting. So,
well, rock mulch and buffalo grass would be, I mean,
yeah, so just meeting that 50%.
even UDOT does some fairly decent things along our on and off ramps as opposed to just planting grass.
Right.
What about, and just throwing this out there, what about even possibly getting rid of the fence and making it way more landscape friendly? I'm asking the architects on the side of this.
Well, if you had a,
The
I like
fence
more
to me just is
landscaping.
gonna hide, I mean, it's not really gonna hide anything.
yeah,
I think maybe more landscaping in that region and remove the fence might be a better mitigation factor, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
I'd prefer more landscaping than a fence and less
The fence is
grass.
required by ordinance. I'm not sure if there's a way to waive that requirement.
Really?
For for our loading docks and,
It's just the issue is usually loading docks would be on the opposite side, like,
But the fence can be hidden by landscaping from the outside, so.
okay, I'm just trying to see how to make it.
No. I think that, if the fence needs to be there, which by code, I guess it does, there's plenty of ways that you can hide that fence
But
with
could we do an
landscaping.
exception with more landscaping?
If, again, just on that loading dock conversation.
Right.
How come we don't have fences on the ones uphill,
Yeah, exactly.
up the hill? Because they all have loading docks on the back of the, I mean, half of them are dance studios, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but they still are loading docks on the back.
and I was not involved in the approval process on those. I'm not sure if it would be, maybe the building screens it on that side.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, maybe there's a similar type of fashion where we can use landscaping in this case, but again, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, when you're down on the lower roads, the building's going to be 20 to 30 feet up in the air
Yeah.
above you, the bottom of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's another 40 feet above that, and so it's gonna have a lot of prominence.
Yeah. Well, and that hillside you're going to see that across the valley.
Yeah.
We negotiate welcome to Herriman
15.
on the back of the building. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you kind of see it on that top view on the right or left side.
Yeah.
How the road is dipping down and it's going to be up higher.
And this is showing the fence, which is why I was wondering if maybe we could.
So on this bottom rendering here, they're not showing all the trees that they're proposing. So there'll be trees along both, on that side that you're seeing on, and then
Yeah,
as it goes.
on the
as
right
that-
edge.
As that fence goes north, there'll be additional trees there as well.
Well, that's one of the hardest things to do is render the site accurately. So
Right.
I'm sure there's some fun.
And there's only been, I think,
Yeah, there's-
it changes a lot, so.
Yeah, there's going to be much bigger.
And you look at this view, though, that we're looking at, it would be nice to have the trees on this side of that fence, right?
Yeah, to help hide the
To-
fence.
To help hide the fence a little bit. Agreed.
I'm wondering if we can add something to the motion about,
Well, we can even talk to the applicant, too. We
let's
can
talk
turn
to the
some time over, let him have some, we've talked a lot.
done that yet.
We still have an opportunity for him to come up and talk to us about it. Yeah, we're not even past, that point, so.
that's right. Let's go Bill and Clint.
Any planning questions for Clint?
Those are good.
It's just fun to mess around.
That's what I'm here for. Okay.
All right, we'll let you take a seat. All right, we'll let Cody come back up and talk to us. Heard you I'm sure you've heard our discussion, don't know.
Yeah.
Feel free to talk to us for a moment about this.
Yeah, the landscaping has definitely been something that we've been working closely with Clint and the team on to try to satisfy the city. And we understand the concern. It's a large structure and building on a prominent intersection of the city, and we want it to be visually appealing to those driving by and make it look nice. So. You know, I think if there's a simple way if we flip the trees on the other side of the fence, unfortunately, our civil engineer's under the weather, so he wasn't able to be here to answer all the technical jargon, but that's something we may be able to consider. But we do feel like we have a pretty substantial landscaping consideration already within this plan. So maybe it's a matter of moving trees or landscaping from one side to the other and putting it into areas that may or may be more prominent or visually appealing to the city. I'd just like to reiterate, we do have the tree coverage that goes along the perimeter on the north and the east side, right on Porter Rockwell, and where closest to Redwood Road would be, which I think will help and are not shown in these.
That's
these
true.
renderings.
You do have trees right along the road
Yeah,
as well.
and Clint, I don't
at
know
the
if I have
bottom.
any control of this guy, but to flip back and forth or
Yeah.
anything,
Maybe Clint can help us with that. Go back to that landscaping plan, because that's,
there you go. So,
oh,
yeah, where'd that, here we go.
here you go. Yeah, you can see the trees
Yeah,
around.
so trees
along.
on the corner going all the way up, right along Porter Rockwell, and then kind of down where Redwood would be, highlighted there in green. So that that'll provide some coverage as people are driving down and up Porter Rockwell.
So what about the grading of the drainage channel? Can you describe
Yeah,
that
sure
a
thing.
little bit?
Yep. So going back. Let's see. Sorry. I guess that was on your plat, huh, Clint? Okay, that's fine. We'll just talk through it. So yeah, you can see the grading there going on to the adjacent site. I think that's your question.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've been working closely with Gary
Yeah, no, it's
McDougall
just those
and
there.
Kenny Olson, who own the site next door, to get a temporary easement from them to be able to come in and basically have a gradual descent down from where we're going to be filling in that ditch. So on our site, we're going to be completely filling and leveling out that ditch. And then there will be a couple of retaining walls on the east side of our site. And then we'll kind of create a descent down into their property so that it's kind of a win-win. They're going to get the benefit of having some of that fill. We're going to be putting the pipe in per FEMA's requirement to remove the floodplain and have it leveled out as part of this entire process. So what will be left is what you see there, kind of on that grading plan, a gradual descent into their site. And then as they come to develop that site down the road, they'll look to fill it in entirely. For right now, the plan is just to cover enough fill for the pipe that's going to be installed. Yeah. So there'll still be a decent amount of ditch there remaining, and then they'll fill it in. But it'll be completely mitigated per the FEMA process.
I'm totally good with that. I just think somehow we need to incorporate that in the motion, and maybe Clint can help us with that to make sure that we're not dictating a solution that has to be done on someone else's property without that person being aware of it. So.
Sure. And so, yeah, just to give you guys a little bit more color there, we're working with them on a formal agreement with an affidavit for part of the application. And
so if we put something in the motion, you wouldn't have an issue with that because you're already working on that, right?
Sure. And there is an alternate. They've been good. We think we're gonna get to an agreement, no issue. But if we don't go this path, we can keep it on our site entirely without an issue. It just becomes a little bit more expensive to do that.
The only reason I bring that up is when he proposed his development years ago, he was using this channel as one of his major landscape features. So that's the only reason why I would like to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, whether we go this route or we keep it entirely on our site, either way, we'll be able to pull it off. So I'm just, however the process works for you guys, but I'm just thinking through this, if there's a situation where we can't come to an agreement, we can still develop this site without going onto their site or encroaching anywhere. So I don't know
Wall
if
would
we,
just get steeper.
it'll just get a little steeper right there. So I don't know if
I guess I
making it
need to
contingent.
get a clarification too. The pipe you're talking about, it's a storm drain for the site, but what about the drainage channel itself? Is this pipe meant to incorporate the potential waters that come down a FEMA floodplain?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so how do you keep that on site if it doesn't work downstream? You can't retain the entire floodplain on your site, can you?
So we've completed an analysis using our consultant, Bowen and Collins, and what we're doing is we're proposing a removal of the floodplain, and we're going to be putting in a 36-inch pipe to route that stormwater around our building and then down back into the drainage canal that exists. And so part of our runoff and retention will be where we're showing our pond, and then the other piece of it will be rerouted around the building and outfall back into the
So if you
canal.
can't come into an agreement, you'll just put a pipe closer to the edge of your property versus going out to daylighting like you're proposing with Phil.
Yeah, so what we're proposing is routing around the building and then coming out where you see the grade onto the adjacent site, and then the pipe going all the way basically to Redwood.
Gotcha. Because that's kind of why it looks like a Christmas tree, upside down Christmas tree, right?
No. There's a pipe, so that's
That
a
is
pipe
a
that
pipe
comes
with
out.
a head wall, and that's where the pipe comes out, and daylight's right there.
That's a pipe that would be coming out. Yep. And so if we can't come to an agreement, we'll just terminate the pipe right
At
at
the
our
property
sight
line.
line, at our
Yeah.
property line, and then they'll come and they'll have to either connect down the road or go through their process, so.
You'll see that on page 120. He's got his drainage plan that shows that routing of that pipe.
And we're really close with FEMA, so we've gone through the full CLOMAR process. We went through the initial review period, received comments back. We've been working closely with Jonathan Bowers, and we resubmitted about 2 weeks ago and expect to get a full approval from them in the coming month or two to remove the floodplain conditionally, so.
I have a question not relating to the floodplain per se, but you talked about landscaping and some of these areas between your front parking lot, which I assume is the front south facing, is your front of your building, and that drive, that new road that's being put in. I mean, you've got 20 to 30 foot drop between the parking lot and the adjacent road, and not a whole lot of depth to kind of carry that grade change. What kind of landscaping are you planning for those areas?
Yeah, it's, so yeah, we've worked with, the city required that we work with GSH to get a stabilization letter, a recommendation in terms of what should go in these, slopes that are above a certain grade. And honestly, I'm no expert in reading these landscaping plans, and Clint, maybe you know exactly what's proposed right here. I believe it's just a natural re-veg that we're going to be planting in that area that should be sufficient to stabilize the slopes. But whatever we're doing has been basically signed off on by our civil, or our GSH, our geotechnical engineer, and the city staff.
And then an associated question, not quite the same on landscaping, but as you're on that road on the front of the building, you're going to be close to kind of eye level with the top of the building. How deep is your parapet wall? And you'll probably have all your mechanical equipment above, I assume?
Yeah, and we have Nick Brady, our wonderful architect here, who can maybe describe a little bit more on the features of the design side. And the mechanical, I don't know, Nick, if you could address
You're probably
that
more
question.
concerned about
Much like screening?
the screening.
Yeah,
right,
screening of it.
yeah.
As you're coming across this road and all the development that is south of it, all that commercial and retail that's down there, are they going to be looking at the top of your building and just seeing units, or are you going to have those screened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that road declines, so at different points, you would have, obviously, a different vantage point. My name's Nick Brady, architect, by the way, sorry for the lack of introduction at the beginning. So yeah, the parapet's relatively low compared to the roof line. There will be some differentiation, but the intended, we don't have any specific locations planned out for rooftop units, though we assume there will be some specifically at entry points for where we assume office areas will be. But we haven't addressed specifically a taller parapet.
Sure.
To deal with that, incline, decline
Right.
situation.
Or even just any kind of screening that just can, screen the actual units themselves, because they're going to be huge units. This is a huge building.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking a lot of tonnage of of HVAC, so
They'll be the size of small buses.
they will be, yeah. So, okay.
Any other thoughts, questions for the applicant?
Not for the applicant. For me.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from Planning Commission? Any other thoughts?
I don't know about how everybody else feels, but I do think a little bit more discussion on the landscaping needs to happen, but not, just having it come back to us to discuss it. Maybe approving it was a subject to
That's what I was
review on the landscaping, really
subject to-
addressing that, and maybe discussion on the fence, whether the fence to landscaping could be a betterment, something to that effect, and let staff
As in we
jump
could-
on that a little bit.
We could
but-
let staff architect or landscape architect noodle on it a bit, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Or they can bring it back and have
I'm
them
actually
approve
thinking they
it.
bring it back to us, so, because
Oh,
it
bring
is
it back
such
to
a
us.
major intersection for
is
the
major.
city. But yeah, I would
So
hope they'd work with
approve
the
it as a
landscape
whole and then just bring the landscape back.
bring the landscape back, and then maybe also put in a little requirement on something about the getting either some, and maybe the attorneys can tell me how to do that, but I've never seen us approve a development where we're allowing applicants to do stuff on other people's property. And so I would just hate to, I don't know how to quantify that in a motion, but we've never done that before that I'm aware of yet.
So a couple of things that maybe I can help address. In terms of the landscaping plan, I know that they have worked very closely with Heidi Chagrut, our landscape architect, on the overall landscaping. I know that Heidi's worked, she's seen this plan more than 3 or 4 times probably. And we've had discussions back and forth on it, and we wouldn't have brought it to the commission if it didn't comply with our ordinance. We're glad to bring that back, maybe, and we could bring it back in a
Work session or something.
work session, and just we could have Heidi kind of walk through the landscaping and what the thought was in terms of the design, and
And I think our intention is, I think there may be more areas where we would prefer to move some of the current ones in the front of the business to the back of the business because of the nature of it being on the hill.
Because that's our front door.
Because of the front corridor potential.
our front door versus our front door, right?
So, and that's where, to me, maybe the fence versus more vegetation may make more sense because of that. If you look at the rendering, and I know renderings are renderings, all you see is fence there.
Yeah.
And I would rather not have a fence there and occasionally see a truck unloading than, and again, if our ordinance says it, then I think we just need to look at what do we really mean by the purpose of it? Because in other areas, I don't know that we have.
Allow a variance to that if it's.
Well, I'm all
So,
for
like,
natural,
just
natural.
going to go out, because I go get bullfrog
Yeah,
spot
I'm all
stuff
for
my
natural
hot tub
buffers
all the time.
versus cement ones.
There's nothing on the loading dock for that loading dock for bullfrog spas. I'm just saying, if that's our standard, we're not doing it. And I don't know that we should start doing it on the entrance to the Herriman, is all I'm trying to say, is we should look at those locations with the fence and the loading dock. To me, it would make sense if there was houses downstream.
Yeah,
we would want
it's
a
not
fence
like
there.
there's a huge retention
But
pond.
being that it's a retention pond, and you probably wouldn't even see the
Hillside.
semi-trucks up next to the building.
Yeah.
I
With them
think we
being
need
up
to
on
really
top
think
of the
about
hill.
that fence piece, the fence and landscaping, but I don't see a reason to stop it till that at a later time on the fencing and landscaping, because like I said, the loading dock, unless I'm blind, I have never seen a loading dock on any of our buildings like this the community. And Bullfrog, I go there every 3 months to get chemicals for my hot tub, so.
Coming over
That one's a big loading dock, I'm just saying, and this is a similar large building.
I agree with Adam. I mean, I'm all for natural buffers, and I would think we have a cement barrier for different uses, and this has a big retention pond in between it.
And maybe we stay with the fence, I'm just saying, I don't know that.
I just don't see a need for it.
Or, yeah.
I'd rather have more trees.
Without the fence, I think you're going to see a lot more of the paving. So you'll see that, I mean, because obviously it's not a
Well, the
flat
paving's
site.
on top of a hill.
Yeah.
Right, so, but with the fence from the view of the street, you'll see the fence, and that will take away maybe, maybe it probably, I mean, it's going to screen some of the truck traffic there. If you take the fence out, you're just going to see a vast,
But if they double the amount of trees on that side,
right? I'm just not sure that there's a way that we can waive the requirement for the fence.
Okay. So maybe the
But if
fence.
we want to move the landscaping, so if we want to move the fence,
can't we
you know,
make an
like
exception to
against the
say
curb.
this is better?
Let's not worry about the fence discussion. If it's a requirement, let's keep it, but let's talk about where the fence to tree location is. And that's the part I think we need to see come back to us so we can ensure it's what. I just want to make sure we're looking at it from an entrance to the city perspective than a landscaping for this project perspective.
If you go to one of the renderings too, it might be good to see there was looking from Redwood Road to the south, right there, that one, the one on the bottom. You need a fence in that view. You may not need the fence when you're down at the corner, but in this one, it does provide some, shield from Redwood Road.
Correct.
Trees in front of that fence, which
Yeah,
make
but
it-
what
Yeah,
are we
but exactly,
protecting?
maybe you keep the fence, you put the trees in front.
I don't mind the fence, Adam,
Don't
but,
I do.
but I'm saying that this is such a big corner and it's so high visibility. I know it's just a rendering, but it's going to be planted. My understanding was native grasses, prairie grasses. It's going to look like this rendering. We only have one chance to get this corner right. And as soon as we approve without thinking this through, it's going to look no different tomorrow than it does today. So I'd like a chance to look at the landscaping, and I get it. If we can't change the application for this project, this whole concept of the native grasses and the landscaping areas and detention basins, we need to really hammer this out and get a better feel for what we can do and can't do. And, we're not trying to drive costs up, but you do want this to be a welcome to Herriman.
So on the east side of this, there still is that commercial property. So this isn't the last shot we have. It may be creating something better. As that commercial property develops in the future, we can also, as I think as part of a conditional use, we can require, maybe some betterments in terms of landscaping that will screen from, so this view that we're looking at from on the bottom where it says looking northwest from Redwood Road. I mean, there could potentially in the future be a commercial development in front of this with, buildings and trees and, their own beautification on that side. As you go up Porter Rockwell Boulevard, that's where they kind of have those additional.
That's where that detention basin is, right? Porter Rockwell.
Yeah, so on
can
the
see all
top
the
of this, you
trees.
can see that they've got additional tree plantings
those
that
trees
kind
on
of go
Porter
up
Rockwell.
Porter
Looks nice.
Rockwell there.
They're on top of the hill at Porter Rockwell.
I know that Heidi had a concern, just when you get to a detention basin, what can you plant there that's going to be easy to maintain, it's going to, allow functionality and not be just rocks. So I think that the compromise there, as they discussed it with Heidi, was to do that prairie grass where it would be low maintenance and it would help provide that stabilization. So, but that, I mean, I'm not saying that we can't bring bring the landscaping plan to the commission if that's what you would like to do.
Well, all those points are valid, but you have, I'm guessing here, 300 feet, 200 feet from the corner of Porter Rockwell, from the tip of that basin perpendicular back to the fence line. And and the suggestion is fill it full of prairie grass that looks like it does right now.
Native.
It's just, I just don't know if that's what Herriman wants as an image
And I
coming
agree with
into
you.
this.
I agree with you, Clint, that we can do a lot with the commercial that may come one day, but that property has a lot of issues itself with grade and that big water line showing across at the bottom right there. So I kind of agree with everybody that maybe this is the one where we really need to think about the landscaping and whether that's continuing it or approving it subject to. I think we need to, I think the building makes sense. I think it's honestly the landscaping and the fact that we're doing development off the property that's my hard. Normally, I would say let's continue it because of those two big issues, but I'm trying not to. But I don't know how everybody else feels. Because to me, like I said, we would never approve a development that has major impacts if I can't imagine we're installing, what's that look like? Probably 300 feet of storm drain pipe on the other person's property for free. Like that just to me doesn't seem like there has to be a reason we're doing that. And so I am a little leery with that risk in approving it without, it's not even part of this application. And we don't even have the adjoining property owner here. So to me, I'm a little leery of that piece. I know if I own property next door and somebody said, yeah, you're gonna approve it, that to me is a big concern.
I think you're right. You can do an approval tonight with the condition on that.
That's what I feel good about an approval with reviewing landscaping.
And a condition on that
The FEMA floodplain.
floodplain on.
Is
So-
that-
And speaking, and during our discussion, I talked to them and asked them if they had worked with the adjacent property owner, and it sounds like they do have an agreement in place that's
Sounds like it,
before
yeah.
both of the attorneys. That's something that we could make a condition that they either, A, get the agreement from the adjacent property owner to move forward with the plan as proposed, or if they don't, then as Chase was talking about, they could still move forward doing all of that
On their property,
that
right?
mitigation on their own property.
I have a question on the masonry wall. If they do additional landscaping as a buffer, I just don't get why we couldn't make an exception for additional landscaping.
We don't have that option. From what I'm hearing is we don't have that.
I just don't think it's
Luxury.
built into the ordinance, unless maybe Mike has some better
It
information.
seems like we do that in other situations.
It's a surprise to me, but like I said, maybe we changed it recently. I don't know.
If I may, and I don't have all the answers here, I will say this particular applicant has worked very hard to keep staff informed. Clint has worked very hard to represent the interests of the cities and communicating that to the development team, and I think they've done a really good job of listening to us. Heidi also
amazing.
is a landscape architect. When Clinton said that we brought something to you that complies with our ordinance, that's true. She's reviewing it based on the kind of the quantitative requirements, right? Needs to be so much coverage, so much plantings, types of plantings. That's the role of her review. So we have this package. In your packet, we list out a number of detrimental effects that you're concerned with in your role as a planning commissioner. Have they prepared a proposal that mitigates these effects to a level of satisfaction that you believe they've met the ordinance? And I apologize for this, but trying to keep things as short as possible, you get big packets. These detrimental effects are in the packet. They're actually kind of a summarized statement of what's actually in the code. So the statement that's in your packet, it says, detrimental effects arising from incompatible designs. But if you actually look at the code itself, what the approval standard is, the proposed conditional use and associated plans include substantial mitigation of reasonably anticipated detrimental effects arising from the conditional use, including but not limited to, and then we have this long list, And letter, let's see, G says detrimental effects arising from incompatible designs in terms of use, scale, intensity, height, mass, setbacks, character, construction, solar access, landscaping, fencing, screening, and architectural design and exterior detailing, finishes, and colors within the neighborhood in which the conditional use will be located. So, essentially what I'm hearing the commission or some members of the commission are expressing is you're not sure that that standard has been met yet. Correct. In conferring with our city attorney, he may, Todd, you said that you would probably prefer that everything be tabled, but in the past, the commission has done this, right? We've approved projects. We've had landscaping plans come back to you for a subsequent review. Todd is saying that he's okay with that as our city attorney. So if that's something you want to do tonight as a consideration, you can. But I think that's the standard. It sounds like you just feel like you're not convinced that we've got the right plan to mitigate that impact on the
Correct.
community, right?
And I lean a little bit on the continue side so that we could discuss maybe the fence, give staff time to think about the fence, not fence option. Versus if we approved it subject to, I think we have to include the fence. And so that's where I'm just.
The fence
Okay.
gets included
The
with the
fence gets
landscaping.
included the
That's what-
landscape.
yeah.
So
I just wanna
to me,
have on
I lean on
record.
more of a continuation, just so that we could look at the whole package again, and we would be clear that we're only going to be talking about landscaping behind the building. We're not talking, I don't think anybody's talking about landscaping in front of the building. It's 100% the landscaping behind, and that fence area is why, to me, I think it may more sense a little bit on a continuation, to give flexibility there for staff and the applicant to go and evaluate that.
And maybe a second reason to continue it is also to have the applicant come with the actual approval to do this work off-site
Yeah,
as well.
from the,
And
some
maybe
discussion.
another concern that we've had.
Yeah, I think those
Tonight as
two
well,
may
those
be
two
a
things.
reason why, again, trying to give the most, to me, it almost seems like the continuation would give you more flexibility than us trying to give so many, this has to come back, this has to come back, that I think it makes it difficult. for
Would the
motion to
commission care to hear again from the applicant to see if they have any further responses to your concerns or questions?
You guys okay with that?
I would add one
We just
more.
never know about timing as
Yeah.
far as what they're trying to
Yeah,
do.
sure, we want to
so.
make sure we're not.
I'm open
slowing-
to that.
Yeah.
The one addition that I would make is not only that agreement with the neighbor, but that agreement is for drainage purposes to carry water from the upstream floodplain through the site. So to do that, you also need a letter from FEMA or their permit to move a floodplain.
And I think staff has that already
Yeah,
as a
that's covered in
condition,
there.
so that would be the
Yeah.
first thing they'd have to do.
That's in there, Clint?
Yeah, that's in
Yeah.
the packet, their approval. So, and like I said, they've, there was like a literal meeting where engineering, the applicant and FEMA was at the meeting. And they hashed through all of these details to address that very specific issue with the FEMA drainage, how that works, how that looks. And so I think that the outline that's provided in the packet is a pretty specific outline of what needs to take place and how and when and what can and can't be approved at certain stages along that approval process. So in terms of if the commission decides to continue this, which we're fine with, we just want to make sure that if you do continue it, that we have a very clear idea of exactly what you're looking for in terms of landscaping on that northeast side of the building, so that we can work through that issue with the developer.
Okay.
Is it, additional plantings? Is it more variation? Is it a certain feature that you would like? Do you want the Herriman logo and rocks out there or something?
In the fence.
Or
Every-
so
every
just
10 feet.
something that we can, something
Yeah.
concrete that we can
Right.
for sure take back, work with the applicant, bring it back and know that we're going to be, fairly close to what the commission was expecting.
Yeah, I think we can articulate that.
Okay.
Or at least what you want to achieve. Like, what's your concern? What is it you're trying to achieve? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think when we go back to the adding additional plantings to that sloped area, for me, it's, yeah, an entrance into our city. And I guess maybe for the applicant, just knowing if that is something they would consider versus us doing a masonry fence.
I don't know that we can, sounds like I don't know that we have as much flexibility on that option with the fence. If the
But
fence
we
says it
can-
must
but-
be installed, then we have to live with it.
But if we continue it, we can let the staff and dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah,
and see
I
if
would just
there
like
is
to know, 'cause-
a change to
That is the reason why I think we should
Yeah.
try and continue
So
it, to see if there's something there.
let's do this. Let's go ahead and have the applicant come back up, see if there's any concerns. I know that I'm sure you're anxious to get going on something like this, but hopefully we are trying to help the situation out as well and provide some flexibility for you as well. Is there any concern with if we look to continue this for 2 to 4 weeks, I guess, the next meeting, whenever that would fall for time for you?
We'd say continue without date.
But, yeah, we'd say without date, but I'm just saying the soonest you could come back would be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, but you recognize the concerns that.
Yeah, no, appreciate all the dialogue and feedback. I think, timing obviously with any development is obviously consideration. And so, if it's 2 weeks, that would be great. We can work expeditiously with Clinton team to make revisions that would be acceptable to the Planning Commission. Ideally, we'd get an approval with a condition tonight. I think that would be really helpful, just kind of where we stand in the process, but understand, you guys need to have answers, and if you don't feel comfortable, that is what it is.
Would you like to see an opportunity maybe to get rid of that fence around the perimeter, though? Is that something?
I mean,
That's a
it's
concern
a
we
cost
have,
savings. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a cost savings for us. So trees are less expensive than a masonry fence, so we can certainly do that. And I think just going back to the point of the landscaping around the detention pond is the big consideration, and kind of what we landed on there was maintenance and stability. I think that initially, similar to your comments, there was desire to have more rock or mulch or variation in texture. But given the slope there and kind of what we're putting there, it just made the most sense, and then adding the trees there to provide some variation. So, happy to move the trees on the other side of the fence and try to spruce this up. But yeah, that's and understand the concern with the adjacent owner. We're really close there with those guys, but again, if they don't want to come to any terms, we can still build this plan without. It just makes it a little easier for us and save some money. So
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you.
I think those are our two concerns.
So I kind of,
No, thank you.
so honestly, I think I'm more on a continuation. That way staff can formulate an answer on whether they work with the landowner or not in a good
And the fence.
recommendation next time when it comes back,
Here's my thought.
rather than us trying to swag it right now.
Well, and I think that we just need to be clear when we say that we're going with continuation, the standard that we're kind of looking for, or the level that we're kind of looking for as, more variation and more screening.
I kind of lean towards approval with conditions, and the reason for that is they need to move forward, and unless they have their landscape architect working through Thanksgiving.
And
then
we
it's
would
Christmas,
not,
and then
we would not be able to turn this around into, our draft staff reports were
exactly.
today for the
Yeah.
next meeting.
I worry
So-
it would be until January.
It
before we'll
would,
be able to get
yeah,
back.
or
That's
December
what I- and I
15th
don't
at the
wanna delay
earliest,
it
so.
with the holidays. And if we had to come back, well,
So if we just bring the landscape. back,
landscape back tied with the fencing as well.
But see, sure.
That's what I'm thinking, because that would keep them.
But then we don't have
because
the agreement about the pipe.
Well, that would be another part. That'd be
But that
another
would-
part of the condition.
Okay.
I just feel like we have so much going on there that I lean on more of a continuation, because I do think,
But that could cause them a 2-month delay, and I don't think it's necessary.
or it might not.
Well,
We don't get a weigh in, unfortunately, on financial impacts. Right? I mean, we're not supposed. I know a lot of us are architects and engineers, and have done developments and different things, and work for cities in different ways. Unfortunately, we can't look at it like that. That's not our job. Our job is to make sure the city's protected, and to me, To me, the fence might be a protection that we don't want to, and I don't know how we would temporarily, if we made an action today saying do it, and then we could remove it. That's the part that's the reason why I think you can take.
We can always amend an approval or a condition.
You'd have to make it as part of they would have to notice that we're going to redo that though. And that's not how we would.
Right, it's a cleaner option to just continue than to try and make it an approval with conditions of future review of landscaping and.
And the other thing is, I mean, the vantage point that we saw, and I appreciate, is not showing what that whole area even looks like, right?
Yeah.
Everything we've looked at is from these two sides, not from that side.
Looking up to the
Looking
building.
up, right? And if it was, I think we might be able to go, okay, all right, maybe it's not as big a deal as we are, but we're talking about way off the sides, so I guess we're probably in the point where we just make a motion and see.
Yeah, make a motion and see if there's concurrence.
I'll go for it. And then Jackson can switch if I'm wrong, right?
Well, if the motion fails, we can always make another one.
I make a motion to continue this item without dates so that the applicant and staff can address the off-site drainage concerns as well as the landscaping along and around the top of the drainage area between the drainage basin and the back of the building to address more of an improved look and feel of that area, whether and as well as whether the fence should be there or not. I'm trying to give you as much as I can in that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion by Adam,
I'll second it.
and we have a second by Daryl. We'll go ahead and call for a vote on this. Brody,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
Jackson.
As a procedural, no.
Okay, Andrea,
Yes.
and Adam.
Yes.
All right, so that item will continue without date. Yeah, guess that's it for that one, for item 4.4. As mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, item 4.5 was removed from the agenda, so we'll jump down to item 5.1, which is a consideration of amendments in Title 10 of the Herriman City Code. Who's got this one? Is it legal staff? Is it Mike? Is it?
I apologize.
I think it showed Todd on the.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's Todd on this one, so,
Oh,
Yeah.
you've got this one, then I have the next one.
yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Is there a game on tonight? Are you checking the Jazz score? Is that what happened?
I wish.
I think everybody was just like, we took that long to debate graduation? Come on, people.
And just as a reminder, these are public hearings, both of these.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, I
Doesn't
apologize.
show that
It's
on
not
there.
labeled that on the agenda.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, on the agenda, it has some language talking about broad public input, and so, yeah, this is for public
Levels of
hearing.
trees we increase.
As well as it states that it's public hearing both on the notice and in the staff report. As you all know, Herriman has lots of trails within the city, and these trails are used by hikers, runners, mountain bikers, and the sort. And as we were looking at our code, we found some inconsistencies with trail slopes. And for example, in residential zones, there's an exception to trail slopes greater than 30%, but in the recreation forestry zone, it doesn't have that exception. So we're just trying to clean up the language, state that there's an exception to the slope for trails. If you have any questions about the text language itself, it's pretty minimal. It just adds trails in a couple different provisions, but pretty straightforward text amendment.
okay. Any questions for Todd? No? All right. This is open for a public hearing. I'll go ahead and open it this time for public comment. Bueller? All right, we will go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Any discussion by the planning commission?
I'm ready to make a motion. So.
All ready to make a motion? Any other questions before a motion's made?
Mike looked like he wanted to make a comment. Okay, just kidding.
Michael's getting ready to go up for the
He's
next
right
one.
I wanted to make sure we didn't have any.
Oh,
Online.
any online comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that. All right, very good. Adam?
I move to recommend to city council approval of item 5.1.
We have a motion by Adam.
Second.
I'll second.
Forrest got you, sorry. We'll give that one to Forrest. He spoke up first. All right, we have a motion by Adam and a second by Forrest. We'll call for a vote. Adam?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
All right, that moves on to City Council for approval, recommended approval by the commission. Item 5.2, Michael, go ahead.
I feel a little bit like the one of your children who keeps asking for the candy bar over and over and over, because we've talked about the possibility of moving planning commission to Wednesday nights. So in our last, I think it was our last work meeting, we talked about it again, and you were finally inclined to consider the option. Now, of course, this is something that would require council approval. You have to have a public hearing on this request and your recommendation. So again, the proposal is to move planning commission from first and third Thursdays to the first and third Wednesdays. There are a number of administrative efficiencies that help staff do their job. You wouldn't think that just moving that by one day would have an impact, but it will. As far as managing our hours, not everyone who comes to these meetings who is staff is exempt. We do have hourly employees. And on Thursdays, because of our time reporting system, sometimes we're not able to properly adjust meeting schedules or work schedules, and then we end up having overtime. And not to mention, it also makes the way we do our packets and the review processes just the same between council and planning commission. I think it will help us do a
And the
number of things
noticing of public,
administratively. Yeah.
right, public hearings.
Yeah, so we have that. Another issue that has come up, and this is really more probably for council's concern, is this type of minutia as to how we run city business is actually maybe better fit in Title II. So we are asking that you propose amending this language in Title 10, but once you make your recommendation, when this goes to City Council, we may be recommending that we actually remove it altogether from Title 10 and reflect this change in Title 2, which is where we have scheduling for the City Council, correct? And other bodies of the city. So anyway, so just for your information,
That's informational.
the amendment probably would end up being removed from Title 10 altogether.
And that doesn't have to be part of any motion then?
Yeah, no. You can just make a motion as to whether or not you want to move the meeting from Thursday to Wednesday, and then the council can consider how it's structured in the ordinance.
Okay, all right. Any questions? Nope. All right, this is open for a public hearing, so I will go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time. Is there any comments that came in online for this one either? Okay. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, seeing no comment. Any discussion? I know there was a concern at the last meeting work session for one individual who wasn't there at the time, that Wednesdays may not be the best.
It just lines up with something else I've had on Thursdays, and I was excited to not have it line up. But then they switched my other meeting to Wednesdays, so it lines up again.
It's a conspiracy, Brody. I talked with your people and.
Oh, yeah.
No. And to be fair, honestly, this is not something the council has weighed in on yet. I don't really know what they'll do with
I like
the
it for city
recommendation either
staff.
way,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, for city staff to have it lined up, they're not like, is it today you're here on Wednesdays or Thursdays? You know, I get that that's.
Every Wednesday, there's something going on, either city council or planning commission.
I think even
Or
if
joint.
you, I don't mean to dismiss staff, but I think if you at least align the two somehow, that is the issue, right? It's something where, and that's what I was going to say, is I'm good moving it to Wednesday, but I'm also good trying to realize that you should align them so that when you drive by the city sign and you go, why is the one's on Wednesday, one on Thursday? When I worked for the staff,
That's just better
it
for
used
the
to be
community,
Thursdays, everything was
honestly.
Thursday, always, so. That kept everybody out of state council.
Ooh, I
So,
like
so
that.
what you're saying is you want to move city council to Thursdays?
I don't
instead
care,
of
is what I'm saying, as long as it
That'd be
aligns.
that's my
Sounds
proposal.
sounds like city staff would prefer the Wednesdays, though.
Again,
All
for the
around.
way
For
we
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays would be better
administrate our
for-
time, and
I'm good with Wednesdays, so. it doesn't
I'm good
matter
with
to me.
Wednesday.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I'll just move golf league to Thursday, so it's fine.
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right,
Go for
go
it.
ahead.
I move to recommend approval to city council on the consideration to move planning commission to Wednesdays or align both the meetings at the same time.
Same day.
Same day.
Same day of the week.
Yeah.
Same day.
All right, we have a motion by Adam,
Second.
second by Forrest. Gave somebody else a chance. All right, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. I'm going to switch it up. Daryl,
Yes.
got to be on your toes. Jackson,
Yes.
Forrest.
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
All right, that goes to city council for approval, recommended for
Gotta
approval.
be in both meetings, though?
They're not, they're off.
They're
Yeah,
opposite
they'll
of
be-
each other, so just every
yeah.
Wednesday
Yeah,
they'll have
we're
a
first
meeting.
and third, they're second and fourth.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Any chair or any comments from the commission?
Question that
Yes,
I
Andrea.
Probably just wasn't clear, is, are we having Heidi come to talk to us about that landscaping, or?
Yes, in fact, we have been meeting internally on a number of changes to our landscaping ordinance. So yes, she is going to be coming and talking.
We have her like the whole meeting, so we could talk about, like, Brody brought up an interesting topic too, that maybe we could talk
Yeah.
about, and
We'll see if we can get her on one of our work meetings in December. Yeah, and I did have one other thing I wanted to share with the council, but
No, I was just going to say, let's do artificial sod all the way up that hill. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No,
Brody wanted
just
crabgrass.
one of the
I want crabgrass, yeah.
one of the commission to
Natural
know that the staff has been working with Mayor Palmer on the selection or appointment of new commission members. As we talked previously, Chris Berbert will be stepping down from the commission at the end of this year. And so we're actively interviewing candidates, applicants. And we anticipate having appointments in the first meeting, council meeting in December. So by January, we should have a couple of new faces, so.
So do we hold a new chair election? I
Yes,
guess, appointment in
yes.
January because he has to
Yeah.
step down? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I thought it was de facto. it just goes
No,
straight
that's
to-
okay.
And I don't know if Brody shared this, but I did check with Brody again about the change on the schedule. And even though that's not ideal, we wanted to make sure that that would not impact his participation on the commission, so.
Good.
It's the same impact.
Brody's still here, we're not, yeah. Yeah,
Fantastic.
we're filling the vacancy that we've had for a while as an alternate. And then, of course, with Chris, then that just gives us 2 vacancies we're working to fill, so,
Great.
yeah. Cool.
Anything else from anyone?
I just, yeah, with landscaping, I would like to look more kind of just with our discussion. I feel strongly about using natural barriers or buffers between zones and not always doing a masonry fence. 1 for connectivity and 2 for visual appeal.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
It's a good thought.
And I think going along the same lines, we can discuss the retention ponds, making them more of a place to be instead of a gravel pit
Yeah,
or a grass pit, whatever.
totally. A second.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and, announce future meetings on Wednesday, November 30th. There'll be the joint city council and planning commission meeting. Our next planning commission meeting will be the following night on December 1st, so switching our meetings, we'll keep that from happening where we have meetings back-to-back as well, like that, so. And then the next city council meeting will be Wednesday, December 14th. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I don't know if we need a second or not.
Oh, yeah.
Adam's always the quickest to get the adjournment in.